College football, you've outdone yourself. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. And before we begin, help us out by hitting that like button as you watch this video. Also, go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And of course, visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks, where for just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And as you can see, we're doing quite well for ourselves, so if you have signed up for the expert picks, you should be making quite a bit of money. Well, we'll talk more about that later. But week 2, we said, had the potential to be even better than week 1, and I believe it certainly lived up to the hype. Week 1 only provided us with one ranked versus ranked matchup, which means we only saw one team in the top 25 fall in week 1. In week 2, we had 2 ranked versus ranked matchups, but we saw 6 teams in the top 25 fall. Texas A&M, of course, fell to Clemson in the first major ranked versus ranked matchup of the day. And then, of course, Texas fell to LSU in the biggest game of week 2. But we also saw USC annihilate Stanford in a game with 2 backup quarterbacks. The Trojans upset the Cardinal by 25 points at the Coliseum. We saw California go into Washington and defeat the Huskies for the 2nd straight year. We saw Colorado put a hold on all the Nebraska hype by upsetting the Cornhuskers by 3 points in overtime, kind of putting a damper on Nebraska's hype and potential Big Ten title hopes in 2019. And then we saw Maryland have another huge display on offense, dropping 63 points on a solid, or what we thought was a solid, Syracuse defense as the Terrapins defeated Syracuse 63-20, and unfortunately for the Orange, prevented College Game Day from going to that major Clemson versus Syracuse matchup in week 3. So we're going to break down all of the biggest games and the biggest moments of this exciting week 2. As you can see, we went a pretty good record in week 2, 43-9, 83% if you round up. That's an 82.7% accuracy rate or winning percentage, however you want to describe that. Which brings our overall record straight up for 2019 to 89-18, which is 83.2%. And of course, for those of you that have been watching us for a while, you know that our benchmark is 76%. This is the 3rd year of the Gridiron Expert, the 3rd year that we have done predictions. In the past 2 years, we have been right at or a little above 76%. So if we do better than that, it is a very good year. If we are right at that, we consider it a solid year as well. We just don't want to go below it. So 83% straight up after 2 weeks, 89-18. For those of you, as I mentioned, that signed up for the expert picks, you should be doing fairly well for yourselves as well, especially in week 2. We told you didn't want to miss out on our week 2 expert picks, and we made sure to honor our word, going 7-3 against the spread in week 2, which is right at 70%. That brings our overall from last week's expert picks to this week's expert picks to 13-7, so right at 65%. And for those of you that still have doubts, that is way better than the guys at Saturday Down South, CBS Sports, and any other YouTuber that I can find as of right now. So right at 65%. If you are above 500 against the spread, you are doing very, very well for yourself. So there's still plenty of time to sign up. Of course, all those links in the description below. So let's talk some college football. Let's talk about what happened in one of the wildest weeks that I can remember. I know we didn't see major upsets. We saw 6 teams fall in the top 25. I know we didn't see some of the biggest ones that we've seen in a while, but we'll start with one that could have been one of the major upsets, maybe all of college football. Army going on the road to Ann Arbor and taking on number 7 Michigan. Wolverine fans, you need to be concerned. You need to be worried. Michigan, for many people, including myself, was the heavy favorite to win the Big Ten East, to win the Big Ten, and for some to even make the college football playoff. And that's what we had the Wolverines doing, coming in, I believe, at number 3 in our college football playoff predictions. But the Wolverines barely survived Army, 24-21 in double overtime. They took the Wolverines to 2 overtimes. And yes, Army last year did take Oklahoma in Norman overtime. That was Kyler Murray and that dynamic offense, and Army took them to overtime, falling 28-21. Of course, on a last-minute or last-second interception from Kelvin Hopkins. Of course, in overtime, now in this overtime against Michigan, Kelvin Hopkins was hit, he fumbled the ball, and Michigan escaped with a win. But the Wolverines did not look impressive. It wasn't a matter of Michigan played well, but Army just looked really, really good. It was a matter that Army looked really, really good, and Michigan was doing everything in their power to give this game away. Army had a chance to go up 21-7 midway through the third quarter, but threw an interception at the 5-yard line. And I wholeheartedly believe that had Army scored a touchdown there and gotten up 21-7, they would in fact have beaten the Wolverines. I do not see Michigan coming back from a 14-point deficit and defeating Army. But nonetheless, they intercepted that ball. Michigan got down there and tied the game up at 14. But the play calling, Michigan fans, from Jim Harbaugh was unbelievable. Was so concerning, so inconsistent, that I begin to question if Michigan really should be considered a college football playoff contender. Early in the fourth quarter, Michigan had a 4th and 2 at the Army 19-yard line. They were stopped on downs. They could have kicked a field goal, maybe gotten up 17-14. It wasn't a guarantee, but it would have been a manageable field goal. They then, with 2.5 minutes left in the game, were stopped on 4th down at the Army 43-yard line. Army had a chance to go win the game with a 50-yard field goal that they missed a little short and to the right. If I had been Jim Harbaugh, why not punt the ball? Army was having such great success on the ground that Michigan was unable to stop them. You were giving them a short field and a chance to line up for a field goal and win the game. Very questionable calls from the Michigan offense, especially on the ground. Very conservative and very run-heavy for the Wolverines. Zach Charbonnet getting 33 carries for just 100 yards, averaging just 3 yards per carry. Yes, he had 3 touchdowns, but clearly the running game was not working that well. Shea Patterson had over 200 yards, 207 to be exact, and I believe had they passed more, this game would not have been as close as it was. Major concerns for Michigan, heartbreak for Army. The Black Knights, of course, still legitimate contenders, maybe to contend for a New Year's Six bowl game or at least a one-loss season. We talked about this being a trendy upset pick, and Army nearly did it for the 2nd straight year against a top 10 opponent. So give credit to Jeff Monken and his squad. Michigan has a lot of things to figure out. Luckily, they have a bye week getting ready for that major road game against Wisconsin, who looks like one of the best teams in the nation right now, having won their past 2 games by a combined score of 110-0. We mentioned one of the major upsets in Week 2 was Maryland, defeating Syracuse by 43 points. Dropping 63 points on a Syracuse team that shut out Liberty, which isn't the biggest accomplishment in the world, but we expected to be a strength for the Orange this season, being their defense. Tommy DeVito did not look that solid in my opinion. I thought he was going to be a great successor to Eric Dungey. He has not shown that to me against Liberty and now Maryland. But Mike Locksley, what he is doing with this Terrapin squad has them as a Big Ten sleeper because no one has been able to stop their offense. And I know it was just Howard and Syracuse. Let's see how they do in the bulk of Big Ten play. But nonetheless, Josh Jackson, this Maryland rushing game, and the defense, give them credit, look nearly unstoppable. And it should be noted that this was also the most lopsided victory for an unranked team to beat a ranked team since 1999. The Terrapins win 40-43 against a top 25 Syracuse team. Clemson, of course, we mentioned in the biggest game of the week, or one of the biggest games of the week, took care of Texas A&M that, for some, was very exciting if you picked A&M in the spread. That was, of course, us here at the Gridiron Expert. Texas A&M scored a touchdown with 10 or 6 seconds remaining to lose by just 14 points and cover the spread. Had they not, Clemson would have won by 21 points and we would have failed to cover. But we mentioned in our Clemson and Texas A&M preview video that for any team going up against Clemson, they're kind of screwed because you can hone in on the run, but Clemson still has Trevor Lawrence. You can hone in on the pass. They still have Travis Etienne. Texas A&M chose to hone in on the run and try to stop the run, stack the box, and stop Travis Etienne after a dominant performance in Week 1 against Georgia Tech, where he rushed for over 200 yards. And they did just that. They held him to 53 yards on the ground. For most teams, that would result in a fairly close loss to Clemson or maybe even a victory. The problem is Clemson has Trevor Lawrence, who, despite Etienne's poor game, threw for over 200 yards, 268 yards, and 1 touchdown. Also, Clemson's defense really stepped it up, shutting down Kellen Mond in a dynamic Texas A&M offense and also forcing 2 turnovers. So Clemson, without a doubt, still the undisputed #1 in all of college football, getting a quality win over a top 15 Texas A&M team out of the SEC. Of course, another game that caught everybody's eye was the Nebraska and Colorado game. The Cornhuskers blew a 17-point halftime lead. They led by 10 points with 14 minutes remaining in the game. And then they led by 7 points with under a minute remaining. But that did not faze Mel Tucker and Colorado's team and his Buffaloes. They continued to march back every single bit. He went to halftime. He said, we've taken everything they've given us. Now let's give them everything we've got. And that's exactly what they did. It all kicked off with Steven Montez's beautiful flea flicker for 96 yards. That got the scoring going for Colorado, the longest touchdown in Colorado history. And the Buffaloes came back and won in overtime against Nebraska, a team that, including myself, many people had as a potential Big Ten dark horse, especially a team that can win the Big Ten West. They might just not be there yet. Scott Frost is now 0-6 on the road during his time at Nebraska, and there are major concerns for the Cornhuskers with this loss to Colorado. Back-to-back losses to the Buffaloes after Colorado came in to Lincoln last year and defeated Nebraska by 5 points, 33-28. Another major concern, too, actually, we'll talk about this. Which coach is going to get fired? We better place bets against the spread, but let's place a bet right now. Which coach will get fired first? Will it be Willie Taggart at Florida State, or will it be Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee? Both coaches doing horribly in their second years with their respective programs. Florida State barely survived Louisiana Monroe, winning 45-44 in overtime, and they very well could have lost that game, but Louisiana Monroe missed the game-tying PAT in that first overtime period. Florida State blew an 18-point lead last week against Boise State. This week, they blew a 17-point lead. They were up 24-7 at halftime, allowed Monroe to come all the way back and force overtime before narrowly escaping. Looking at the rest of Florida State's schedule, I see probably 4 more guaranteed losses for the Seminoles, if not more. The tough schedule ahead of them, they haven't even hit the bulk of ACC play yet, and in Week 3, they face off against a newly ranked Virginia team that is absolutely a contender in the ACC Coastal. This Florida State team does not look good, does not look promising. It's not meeting the standards for Seminole fans and for the Seminole administration. And if Willie Taggart doesn't turn things around, and I don't think he will be out of a job by season's end, if not before. Same can be said for Tennessee, who has started 0-2 for the first time now, I believe, since 1988. They lost 29-26 in double overtime to BYU. They led 16-13 with 47 seconds left, and the FPI was giving Tennessee a 99.9% chance to win that game. Because not only were they up by 3 points, BYU had 1st and 18 from their own 8-yard line with 47 seconds left. And somehow the Volunteers found a way to blow that game, and now they are 0-2 in a year that Jeremy Pruitt was supposed to get this team back to somewhat relevancy in the SEC and maybe get them to a bowl game. And I'm here to tell you I'm 99.9% sure that's not going to happen. And of course, finally, the last game we're going to address, of course, is the biggest game of Week 2. We said it before, we'll say it again. It was also the best game of Week 2. So it was the game of the week. It was the most exciting game of Week 2. LSU and Texas, number 6 Tigers going down to Austin to take on the number 9 ranked Longhorns. Over 1,100 yards of offense in this game. Neither team, I will say, looked like DBU. Let's just say that. LSU likes to pride themselves on being defensive back university, and Texas did the same, actually warming up in DBU t-shirts, kind of as a shot at LSU. Neither of them looked it because both quarterbacks played out of their minds. Joe Burrow throwing for 471 yards and 4 touchdowns with just 1 interception. Sam Ehlinger throwing for over 400 yards himself with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. He also tacked on 60 yards on the ground. Texas, of course, had their chances to win this game. The Tigers escaped, as many of us know, 45-38. Absolute thriller. They were up 20-7 at halftime. Texas, of course, battled all the way back. The two teams combined for 7 touchdowns in the second half alone. But Texas had their chances, getting stopped inside the 5-yard line twice early in the first quarter. The first, of course, being a wide-open pass in the end zone dropped by Keontae Ingram. That would have really, I think, shifted the momentum early for Texas. They were unable to convert there, though. LSU's defense stood strong inside the 5. Keontae Ingram should have caught that ball and given Texas a touchdown, which could have very well been the difference maker in this one, as the Longhorns lost by 7. But because of that turnover on downs, LSU was inside the shadow of their own end zone. And Joe Burrow ended up throwing an interception that was returned to the LSU 4-yard line. So Texas, despite dropping that pass in the end zone, had a chance to bounce right back and get themselves a touchdown. And they were unable to do so. Sam Ehlinger stuffed, and LSU's defense held strong once again. So we said it in our Texas and LSU preview. What were the keys in this game? It was going to be to pressure the quarterback, keep them in the pocket. Both teams did that, but both teams' quarterbacks thrived. They did extremely well. We also said, though, which defense was going to force the most stops when it mattered most. And usually when it matters most, that's in the fourth quarter. That wasn't the case. It mattered most early in the first quarter. LSU got those 2 huge stops. One of them wasn't even a stop that they committed themselves. It was just a drop. But still, it was a stop. And it ended up being a difference maker as LSU escaped 45-38 in Austin. And I had a guy comment one day, back when we did our predictions, he said, "You're done. LSU's good, just like Georgia. LSU's going to lose. They're going to hit them in the mouth hard, and they'll fold like dogs. You underestimate the defense and our Heisman finalists." I said all along that LSU was going to go into Austin and win this game. I said it was going to be close. But we're going to put the Texas back talk on hold just for a little bit. Just for a little bit, we're going to put that Texas back talk on the back burner because they're not yet. Yes, they beat Georgia. That was great. But you got to win those big games at home. It was a great fight from Tom Herman and his squad. He even said it, just like we said it, it's a marathon. Season's not over. All their goals are still in front of them. But this was a major blow, and Texas has not a lot of room for error for the rest of the 2019 season. But all in all, this was a thrilling Week 2. It was an unbelievable Week 2. 6 teams in the top 25 fall. We had an exciting nightcap between LSU and Texas, and if you stayed up till the wee hours of the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, you saw a thriller between California and Washington, Pac-12 after dark. But this is what college football is all about. We said at the beginning, college football has outdone itself because the first 2 weeks have been so unpredictable and so exciting than in recent years that I think by season's end, we're not going to know what hit us. We said the 150th season of college football had this different feel to it. That it wasn't going to be these, this bland season where we know who's going to make the college football playoff, where we know who's going to win every single conference, where we know who's going to win every single game. That hasn't been the case in the first 2 weeks, and I don't expect it to be the case for the rest of the season. So there you have it. You saw how we did. You saw how the rest of the teams did. Stay tuned for the rest of this week as we start breaking down Week 3, which will, of course, be another exciting and unpredictable week of college football. So guys, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And of course, go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and sign up for our expert picks, where for just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And like I said, you can see how we're doing against the spread. It's better than most of the places you're going to find out there. So go over to our website and sign up for our expert picks today. You certainly will not regret it. And once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.